Hold on, I have just a little quick mini rant. I will put a timestamp in the pinned comment if you just want to skip this. I've been getting super into min-maxing this game. First off, let me just explain this. You cannot rate anything in this game as if it is a universal ranking. There are two forms of builds. There are builds that focus on their weapon attack, and there's builds that focus on spell casting. They both have completely different item progression paths, both have completely different wants and focuses, and anyone who tries to give you a universal rating that tries to encompass everything is either a moron or they just are not giving a fair rating to anything. And I'm going to give you a prime example of that, but I've been getting super into min-maxing this game, like solo, honor mode, no party kind of stuff, and I have found that I've watched about 5 different tier lists. They were all fucking bad. The only one that wasn't like total 0 out of 10 dog shit was Astucis's lists. Those ones were pretty okay. But he still fell into the issue of it's like, what do you do with resistance? You know, because in a weapon attack build, this is undeniably S tier auto include, one of the best things in the game. But as a spellcaster, you would never use this, ever. So what, do you just throw it in the middle? Well, that doesn't satisfy either camp. Or like Ray of Frost. If you're playing like a min-max sorcerer build, yeah, this is as good as like a level 3 spell. But if you're playing anything other than that, you know, it's like kind of down here. So I'm just going to make 2 videos for every tier list. One, assuming you're playing a weapon attack build. One, assuming you're playing a spellcasting build. Now, let me give you a prime example of why this matters. This is going to be for weapon attackers. So resistance is undeniably S tier. So the reason why, it takes your concentration, which a lot of people rate as a bad thing. Like there's that one idiot with the blue eye profile picture. I genuinely don't even remember his name. He occupies that little in my brain. He's that irrelevant, that unimportant. He rates things that take concentration as a negative because, you know, you can only be concentrating on one thing at a time. Okay, well, a weapon attacker doesn't fucking have anything else to concentrate on. You know, and this lasts 10 turns and averages out to be a +2 to saving throws. That is equivalent to adding 4 fucking stats to every stat category for your saving throws. That's giving you +4 wisdom, constitution, dexterity, +4 intelligence. Like, that is a crazy amount of stats, and it procs Strange Conduit Ring, which every fucking weapon attack build uses without any exception. So you need a way to proc this, so you need to be concentrating on something. This doesn't take any spell resources and is equivalent to adding a +4 to everything on average for stats. Sometimes it's equivalent to adding a fucking +8 to your stats. You know, so like, this is what I mean. In a weapon attack build, this is godlike. Now, in a weapon attack build, Ray of Frost is... Actually, I'm going to give it C tier specifically because of the movement. You might take this on a, like, greatsword weapon attacker, and you might actually get some use out of it in the early game before you start getting items online and ways to always close gaps. You might just use that. You might move forward, use this to apply the movement speed penalty. And that would be the only reason you're using this in a weapon attacking build. Bone Chill is terrible. If you really want the necrotic effect to stop healing, you will equip your bow or crossbow or whatever the fuck. You will use the necrotic arrow and you will just do that. It will have a higher chance to succeed, a higher chance to hit, and it will do significantly more damage, even if you don't specialize in bows. So you will never take this. Firebolt. Again, if you're a weapon attacker, you'll just use a fire arrow to proc boulders or activate like the fire weakness on the one flesh golem enemy. Like, there's really no reason for this in a weapon attacker build. Eldritch Blast is the best damage cantrip, and if you're playing like a Pact of the Blade or whatever warlock, then that's really the only way you're ever going to even have access to this on a weapon attacking build. And really, this is getting B tier for the simple fact that it is just the best damage dealing cantrip, and there's like one specific build that can even grab this, but if they do, they're always going to, because it's just that potentially good. You know, like, it takes a while for weapon warlock to get off the ground, and this just kind of carries you until you get like your first 3 or 4 items. So I guess it's worth a little bit of a nod. Guidance is awful. People put guidance in like S tier because the effect is super strong. But did everyone just like forget that this item exists? So look. Harper Outpost on the Druid Grove. This, you can literally get this item after the goblin encounter fight. So you fight the intellect devourers or sneak past them, then you fight the goblins in front of the Emerald Grove. It is literally like 2-second walk away from where that goblin fight takes place. And then for the rest of the game, just put that pendant on your hotbar. Anytime you need or want guidance, just click the icon on your hotbar and you get it. Just like that. It is that easy to have permanent guidance for the entire rest of the game. Why the fuck would you ever take this? There is no reason for anyone to ever take guidance ever. And people who tell you otherwise, they're either looking at it from a very casual perspective or a very RP heavy perspective. Yes, if you just refuse to just grab this item and just always pre-equip it, or if it's your first time playing the game, then yeah, this is up here. But, and specifically as a weapon attacker, you're never using this unless you're like thievery or something, or you have to pass a check. Acid Splash is the worst cantrip in the game. It's terrible. So Blade Ward's effect is like up here. It gives you resistance, so 50% damage resistance to basically all physical damage. 95% of all physical damage you will take in this game, Blade Ward gives you a 50% reduction to it. But a weapon attacker never wants to cast this. If you want this effect, and assuming you aren't playing solo, you are going to pickpocket these gloves off Zevlor. So yes, literally as soon as the goblin attack ends, you just use that silver pendant you just picked up, cast guidance on yourself, and then pickpocket these off of Zevlor. It's like a 10 check, which is incredibly easy for like a bard to make. Let's put this way. I have never not gotten these gloves if I was playing with like a support cleric when I'm like carrying a friend through honor mode or whatever. I have never not gotten these gloves in like the first fucking 20 minutes of starting the game. And for there on, you just respec Shadowheart into a life cleric. So you surprise them turn 1. There goes their first round of actions. You use this in every fight to negate their second round of actions by fully healing everyone, which then activates these to give you 50% damage resistance for the next 2 turns, which that effectively negates turns 3 and 4. For any kind of serious threats. Even if they like hold person you and like have a great sword user critting you like twice, doesn't matter, you're taking half damage. That's like the same as if they just attacked you on a normal turn. So it's like an S tier power effect, but you would never take this. You would get it from other sources. Shocking Grasp could be a little bit useful in a weapon attacker because you'll at least be in range to use it most of the time. So I have to give it a little bit more respect than the other damage cantrips. It deals enough damage and is electric. So if you're playing with a sorcerer friend, if you're using a greatsword and playing with a sorcerer friend, there's a real chance, there's a world where they have like a cleric cast water or they throw a water bottle. You run in to hit with your greatsword, and because they're already wet, you just cast this for like 20 damage instead of like a 7-10 damage hit greatsword hit. Like, there is a real world where that could be used. Dancing Lights. So Dancing Lights is interesting because depending on what you're doing and how you're playing the game, it is either up here or like down here. So let me explain, and then we'll think about where to put it, because this one actually requires some thought. So it's a concentration spell, so it procs this. It procs Strange Conduit. So that's always good. The actual effect illuminates an area. Now, the reason why that matters so much is because of this. This is a meta item that at least one person in your party will always want this, because it's just 2 points of free damage against basically everything in the fucking game, because almost everything is in a clear area. So Dancing Lights would allow your weapon attacker to proc this. They can drop it before the fight starts, proc this, and let's say you have a magic, because come on, we all know magic missiles is one of the best fucking builds in the game. It's ridiculously powerful, and it's powerful because of this. I mean, come on, 11 fucking magic missiles, and each of them deals 2 damage. This one ring adds 22 damage to your cast, like, just for free. So making sure this is active is very important on builds that multi-attack. Hell, even if you're just playing like a bow bard, this is really good. So you always want to use this on someone. You always want this active. And because this is a weapon attacker, the only other thing they would be using their cantrip on is resistance. This clearly is not as strong as resistance, but it's one of the things you'll always be casting. Yeah, I think it's A tier. For the simple fact that every single weapon attacker in the game, without exception, it doesn't matter if they're rogue, bard, fighter, whatever, wants to take at least one level of cleric so they can get those 3 bonus attacks every long rest. Every single weapon fighter in every single optimized build takes 1 war cleric level, which means they will get access to resistance. Usually they take it at around their 7th level, because 6th level is when most builds get their extra effect. So that means you'll be taking this in an optimized run a little bit after the Githyanki Kresh, and in an unoptimized run a little bit into, like, you know, halfway into Act 2. Which means Dancing Lights is going to have to do the heavy lifting for concentration requirements until then. So there is a sliver of time where this is actually just your best option to proc Glow Ring and the Strange Conduit. And the fighter type is going to be the one investing to cast this. So yeah, we'll put this there. Friends is ridiculous. Do we even need to talk about this? So I only play this game on honor mode. I think I did like 1 tactician playthrough very early on. Friends is very different in honor mode. In honor mode, the target might accuse you of enchanting them. So the way this works, at least consistently in my experience, is you cast this on someone, and if the buff runs out and you're still in their line of sight, they will try to initiate combat with you. Like through a dialogue, like as if you assaulted them. So you can't talk your way out of it. So on honor mode, this is a little bit risky if, you know, it's something like the Kresh or whatever, where you might be in the same area for an extended time. But the effect is amazing. You can gain advantage on charisma checks. So again, you would use the silver pendant to proc guidance on yourself. You would use the shapeshifter's ring to get a second guidance effect stacked up. If you're the one talking to people, you're always going to be like having proficiency in your deception and persuasion check. So that's going to be like +3. Assuming you're like a charisma class, like a bard or a sorcerer, because everything is a fucking charisma class. Thank you, 5th edition, for dumbing everything down. So you're going to get like +3 from your charisma. You're going to get 2 1d4s from shapeshifter's ring and guidance. And then you just add this to give advantage. So this is always worth having, because you can use it in the dialogue screen, so you never have to worry about the negative effect of potentially getting accused of doing whatever. This is always worth picking up. Mage Hand. So I'm not gonna suck Mage Hand's dick nearly as much as everyone else does, because I really, unless I'm doing an exploit like getting the silver astral plane sword early, I've never really found a use for Mage Hand. Like, yeah, I'm aware. Okay, I think this is how it works. If you are a casual, Mage Hand is up here. If you are optimizing, Mage Hand is down here. I have never in my life casted Mage Hand and had it do something that I couldn't have just done probably faster by myself. Excuse me. Like, yeah, people will use this to like, oh, I can just cast this and throw the Necromancy of Thay at myself. But it's like, okay, I'm never gonna not make that lockpick check. Or like, okay, I'm never gonna, I'll put it in C tier because like it's worth having around for like the one time you might need it. But there's never gonna be a time. I'm one of those people who thinks Mage Hand is like fucking awful, because anything Mage Hand does, you can just do yourself. But Mage Hand is used in a couple exploits to get items that you otherwise couldn't get. So I guess, so for that reason alone, until those are patched, then I have to keep it out of D tier. But again, if you're a casual and you don't have all your bases covered, it's like up here. You might as well take it, because you'll probably come up with a few ways where you're like, yes, I can go behind cover, and then I can spawn it by this merchant to take this unique item. Just know everyone else is just like doing a darkness arrow, and they're just walking up and grabbing it. Okay, that's Mage Hand. Poison Spray. I have never even heard of people using this. This one has like the highest base damage of any cantrip, if I remember correctly, but it's the worst saving throw. It's the worst damage type. It's garbage. It is the worst cantrip in the game. Produce Flame is another pretty terrible cantrip. Hold on, we were supposed to be reading the cantrips as we do all this, in case people haven't played the game, but it should be pretty obvious what these do. So Produce Flame is a little interesting. It creates light in a radius, which is okay. It deals damage when thrown, which just use Ignis, you know, it's whatever. And it does all of this stuff. And this is just a whole lot of words that are like, whatever. Basically, this is just a light source. This is just light that can be thrown and can't really be used on items. So it's not as good as light. Maybe I'm way off base on this one, but I have never seen anyone use this to any effect. I've never even heard of people using this. Sacred Flame, I'm super biased on this, but every time I use this, it gets saved against. I have never seen this be used for, like, any real effect, and even if it was used for effect, I'd really have to ask myself, why would I not just cast, like, Ray of Frost or something? Which, you know, slows their movement. Shiliaf? What the fuck is Shiliaf? This is some, like, very specific class stuff. Oh, Druid! Hold on. Add row below. Do 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 do. Druid is the worst class in the game. It is so far and away the worst class in the game. The only build that can even really be used on Druid is like Enlarge Bear, jump from a high distance and try to one-shot. But like, that's really cheesy. That's even more cheesy than barrels. And that's probably going to get patched. If it doesn't get patched, then cool. You found the one way to use Druid in like 1 out of 10 fights. I don't even need to know what this does because it's on a fucking Druid. And Druids are so goddamn bad that like anything associated with them or is required to get from them is not worth taking. But I guess we'll read it. 1d8 bludgeoning damage, that's terrible. Attack rolls use the wielder's spellcasting ability modifier. Okay, so this would, holy fuck. This just contributes to the problem with Druid of having a really confused identity. So this wants spellcasting modifier, but it also wants attack rolls for attack items. Okay, or I could just play like Eldritch Knight, or like Pact of the Blade Warlock, and just use all attack items, and just get all the things this is trying to do. I didn't even know this was a thing in the game. It's that bad. Thaumaturgy. This one is interesting. And you'll see why. It's one of those things that you try to use, but always forget to use. So gain advantage on intimidation and performance checks. If you try to use this, like, beforehand, then you'll always forget it. But if you use it as a reaction, then it's great. Thing is, intimidation and performance kind of fall under the same, like, general skill set that friends do. It's still S tier, because, again, every single weapon attacker wants to take 1 level of cleric. So, you might as well take this. It's just free advantage on these checks whenever you do them. Thorn Whip. Isn't this another Druid thing? Yeah, Druid. Oh yeah, and Warlock via Pact of the Tome. Who the fuck is taking Pact of the Tome to take Thorn Whip? So this is just a pull. That's all it is. It's just a pull. It's like a tentacle pull from Divinity. I've never seen anyone use this. I've never heard of a build using this. I'm sure pulling enemies into a certain area has uses, like you can pull them off ledges. But again, I don't like ledging enemies. I feel like it's stupid to just walk up to the big bad in stealth and just push them off. Some people are really into that because herder the memes. But, whatever, it just feels kind of lame. True Strike is True Strike. Hold on. Druid. / True Strike. Lol. So, So True Strike is interesting. It takes concentration, which is a plus because it procs Strange Conduit, and it gives you advantage on attack rolls. Which, if you really want this, you get it from Risky Ring, which everyone uses, or you get it from the Gloves of the Underdog or Gloves of the Automata. Like, there's a lot of ways to get this. The only way you can make this even sort of viable is if you're playing Bard, you're playing with, like, Sharpshooter, and you just go all in on your Slashing Flourish, and you really want both hits to hit. And you cast this in stealth before combat starts. But that is a whole lot of shit that you need to do to actually, like, you know, get this to even do something. Vicious Mockery is another one of those pretty awful cantrips. The best thing that it does is this. Disadvantage on the next attack roll. But you're never going to spend an action to do this. Granted, Wisdom Save is pretty nice. Most creatures don't have a whole lot of Wisdom. And it is on the single best class in the game. So if you're dipping into Bard, you might as well grab it. But there's never a time when you're casting this. The effect is like up here. Disadvantage on attack rolls is really nice for survivability. Now, I can't put this down here. I have to put it at least in, is it C or B tier? Because here's what I'm thinking, right? Grim. Grim is a notorious run-ender in honor mode. Unless you're going to cheese him with invisibility and have him walk on a specific point where he's both on the plate and he's getting superheated, and then you just use the bow to kill him. If you do it like that, then yes, that boss is a complete joke. But if you don't do that, because he has like no wisdom, this basically gives him permanent disadvantage, which makes his nuclear attacks not good. Yeah, you know what? Because it's attached to Bard, and there's a few fights where you just don't have anything to do, because you have to wait for your allies to do something, this is actually pretty good. So we'll put it, like, in this ballpark. As a weapon attacker, right? As a weapon attacker specifically, to where we aren't doing any of this stuff because other classes would rather do all this stuff. If I'm fighting Grim, like, here's the thing, right? Would I rather take Shocking Grasp for, like, the 2 times I might use it at level, like, in levels 1 to 3? No, I think I would rather have Vicious Mockery. Yeah, if I'm a Bard, right? I would rather have the ability to give, like, Grim or someone that is really dangerous and I can't really deal damage to. Or, like, you know, the one Dragar in the Grimforge, where he has, like, permanent fucking resistance. So your attacks barely hurt him, so you might as well let the spellcasters take care of him. Like, there is more than one scenario I can think of off the top of my head where your attacks aren't really doing anything, and it's best to just hit this button and give them disadvantage so that they can't really hurt anyone. Yoink. Light is pretty ridiculous, and I don't think people understand why. So, it lasts until long rest, which is fucking crazy. So, you just... This is another area where Ace Deuce's lists really fell flat for me. He has this retarded fucking restriction of 5 long rests per act, and he doesn't like pre-buffing. So, like, he limits his long rests, and he doesn't just, as soon as he does long rest, recast, like, 3 or 4 buffs. So, like, yeah, in that environment, Light's not gonna be, like, super great. But you cast Light on yourself, and that gives permanent illumination for the glow ring. And as a weapon attacker, you know, why not? If spellcasters think the same thing, why not? It's a permanent buff until long rest. And Minor Illusion literally breaks the game, because this allows you to stack enemies up for Arrow of Many Targets to get free hits on all of them, your AoE arrows, or you can use it for barrels, or you can use it to pickpocket easier. Minor Illusion breaks the economy by letting you pickpocket for free in areas that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Pickpocketing breaks the game. Barrels break the game by giving you an instant win to just about any fight you can think of. This allows barrels to stack up and kill everyone. Like, there's really nothing... there's never a reason to not have Minor Illusion. If you're not stealing and you're not stacking things up for like barrels or a cone of cold or whatever, then it is like down here. You would never use it. But again, think about it. Even if you don't, okay, let's say you don't want a thievery. You don't want to break the economy of pickpocket. You don't want to cheese with barrels. Then at the very least, let's say you're playing with a sorcerer. Like one of the most popular and powerful sorcerer builds, Dragon Sorcerer, focusing on the wet and like Cone of Cold or Ice Spikes or whatever. You do Minor Illusion before the fight starts. You have your Cleric cast Create Water in that area, so it stacks everything up, so they only have to spend a level 1 spell slot instead of like a level 3 for the extra range. And that gives them all nice and close for your... You want an awesome 3 combo that is no cheese, no nothing, and it just makes you feel fucking great, like all your builds perfectly work together. Have the Bard do Minor Illusion, have the Cleric cast level 1 Create Water, and then have the Sorcerer run in and do Cone of Cold. You'll hit for like each target for like 100 fucking damage, and like everyone got to contribute. It's an awesome combo that everyone gets to do before the fight starts, and it gives you basically an instant win. Yeah, this looks pretty objectively correct for weapon attackers. I'm sure you could make the argument that this could be higher or this could be lower. Someone's gonna get mad that Eldritch Blast isn't up here. But again, like, let me just reiterate. If you are a weapon attacker, if you are a, like, fighter focusing on great weapons, you are going to be attacking 2, borderline 3 times every single turn, even at, like, level fucking 4. So, and your weapon attack with the Everburn Blade is going to do way more damage than an Eldritch Blast would. So, you know, you never want to be doing it. If you are a bard, you know, you never want to be doing it. But I'm not going to knock it and say, like, if you can get access to it for free, then it is better than all this stuff. But again, even if you can get it on weapon attack builds, they're BAP builds for a reason. You know, why the point isn't to be casting any kind of spells. Okay, I'll just make another one of these for spellcasters, because spellcasters basically flip a lot of this stuff on its head.